glad you're with us wherever you are. If you're joining us locally here on television in the Santa Barbara, California area, we welcome you at TVSB. We're actually in the TVSB studios today. It's kind of a rare opportunity, which we love, and we're so grateful for the crew here. And then so many of you join us on all these other platforms and the podcast, and we're seeing you, and we're grateful for you. We're so grateful that you're along for this journey that we've been on. There's a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. Most of you check goodlifetelevision.org, which has everything. And then the podcast, you can search for Good Life Conversations, and that's where you'll find us on any of the podcast platforms. So we're glad you're here. We're talking about the good stuff. We are talking with great people, and we have one here today. I'm also grateful for our friends at Bunnin Chevrolet who present the program. Great friends, and we're grateful for them. So my guest today is a friend. He's an amazing guy, and we've gotten to know recently. Ted Lawton is with me. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dean, for having me here today. It's a real honor.
Yeah.
Some of your past guests are just incredible, and the stories that have come out of this channel are just amazing.
Yeah.
So to be included in that is quite an honor.
Well, thank you. Yeah, quick background on Ted. So Ted's been he's been an entrepreneur, I guess you could say, but he's been in real estate, commercial real estate. He's managing partner of several entities and companies, and a financial analyst and a CEO. So he's kind of had a business background, which we'll talk some about. He also has some other interesting things now going on, which we'll get to. But let's start kind of at the beginning and take us back to kind of where you're born and raised, and a little bit about your family.
Yeah. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, specifically a little island called Alameda, which is in the East Bay. And I grew up with 3 sisters and 2 brothers. So we had quite the household, there's always something happening, right? There's always a lot of action. But it was a wonderful place to grow up, and I had a lot, amazing memories, a lot of really good friends. And from there, I got an opportunity to go to Cal Poly, and so, moved to the Central Coast, fell in love with the Central Coast. But, really in my life, it's been an incredible journey. I was adopted. And so my parents were wonderful. They told me about it ever since I could remember, ever since I could walk. And so to me, it would just seem like, oh, it's just normal, right? It's okay. Like, it's just part of life. And so, I lost my parents about 6-7 years ago. And it's interesting, being younger in some ways and not having parents, right? Kind of it's like, now you're on your own, and it's up to you, right? It's up to you to provide for the family, and then your relationships with your siblings, and how does this all work? And but what was incredible is God. That story. He wasn't finished with that story. Turns out one Christmas, my sister decides to give me one of these like DNA test things, like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. And so, my wife, she encouraged me to do it. I wasn't really wasn't really interested in doing it, but she's like, no, wouldn't it be cool to know about your background? And so sure enough, through that process, I discovered my biological father, and then he helped connect me with my biological mother. And so I got, all of a sudden, I have parents again. So that, to me, that was quite the experience. And again, God blessing, me in my life. And, there's been lots of times in my life where God has I have been blessed, and I've seen lots of miracles, and it's been just an incredible journey.
So the last time you saw your biological mom was the day of your birth, which you probably don't remember.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's fuzzy.
Yes, fuzzy.
And then fast forward, the next time you saw her was the day she died.
Yeah, the day she went home to heaven. It was amazing the way that God kind of put that together from a timing perspective, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I had in my life, was to be there for my mother. She was there when I was, she was there for me when she brought me into this world, and I was there for her as she went home. and it was a very beautiful experience.
So was she coherent, or was she?
Somewhat. I could tell she was there, but she was battling cancer, and so she was medicated. But to sit there and hold her hand and pray for her, and just tell her how excited I am to have a relationship in eternity, even though we didn't have the relationship here on earth. I said, this is short. Our time here is short. It's so short.
Right.
And I said, I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there. I'm coming.
Yeah.
I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to have this eternal relationship with you.
What amazing.
Yes, it was. I didn't know what to expect, quite honestly, but at the end, it was something that could really be something that was very special to me.
Yeah, I bet.
To have that opportunity. So.
And then what has happened with your biological father?
Amazing man, amazing man of God, and he's actually gotten very involved. He was here just last week, and he lives in Iowa. Him and his wife Mary, they come out and they visit very regularly for our kids' birthdays, and we have regular. I mean, it's the dad that I always wanted, and the Lord had that for me, right? And so. Yeah, it's very, very special, and I just feel so blessed to have that connection.
Yeah. Is he surprised about all this?
I think we're all surprised. Yeah. It was like everyone was surprised, and at first it was like, what do you do like in this situation? How do you reconnect? Like, what do we do with our family? What do we do with their family? But I think out of the circumstances, it couldn't be any better. Right, just as far as the way that God has put it together, as far as the way that the relationships have developed, and I just, I'm so grateful. And again, God always has a bigger story, right? Yeah. And it's like I feel like the more obedient you are with your relationship, the more of these things kind of happen.
Yes.
So in my career, similar things, right? As far as the Lord giving me this path, right? And so my career again is I've been so blessed just to have the opportunities that I've had in my life. From where I started. I'm a projects guy. If you ask me, hey, what do you do? It's like, why I do projects, and quite, like now it's like, oh, I do the Lord's work. That's literally my focus.
Yeah.
Is doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
And so for me, what happened was I had this word from the Lord. Like the Lord, he touched my heart. I was in bed. And I was waking up in the morning, and I was just kind of getting the day going. I was just thinking about what am I doing today, and God, spoke to me. And I was thinking of all these things I got to do. He's like, "Great, you got all this stuff to do, but what have you done for me?" And that it shook me. It's like, "What have you done for me?" It's like, whoa, and it really, my whole perspective changed.
Yeah.
It was from like, oh, I didn't realize it. I missed it. I missed my calling. I missed my purpose. My life had been going after what success in the world looks like, as far as projects and assets and all of that, right? And I realized that God had given me these gifts and this talent, and I'd been using it kind of for my own self-gain. We tithe and we do this and that. But that's, the Lord has so much more, right? So much more work. God has so much work for us to do. Yeah. And I really had been distracted. Yeah. It's kind of the best.
How many years ago was this?
This was probably in the last 2.5 years.
Okay.
And so it really shook me.
Yeah.
And it was like, what do I do now? Right. So now that the Lord has called me, given me the word, what am I going to do in my life? I have business partners, I have my wife, I have my family, how do I tell my wife hey Lord, or hey love, I just heard from the Lord. The Lord spoke to me in my heart and said, I need to stop working for money. I need to start working for Him.
That's an easy conversation.
Oh yeah. So it's like, how do I bring this up to say I'm not going to work for money anymore. I'm just going to work for the Lord. I'm going to trust that the Lord will provide the provision.
Yeah.
And to that point, there was a lot of work. My wife was stay at home, and so since our second oldest son was born, so almost 10 years. She was a teacher and she stopped, and for 10 years she hadn't really worked, and so to have that conversation, it wasn't easy, and I knew it was going to kind of go one of two ways. It was going to either be really good, or we're going to have, it's going to be interesting.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing approaching the partners. God kind of worked a lot of that out, and it's still working a lot of that out, just from commitments and all the responsibility and so. But it's been amazing since that point, because part of God closing doors is having to have trust and faith in Him, that He will work all things out for your good. Right. And so it's easy to say that, but to live it is a whole nother thing. To every day be asked, hey, trust me in this. Take that leap of faith, every day. I'm taking that leap of faith that God is going to provide, that God is there, and whatever challenge or whatever it is that it will be overcome. And I've been watching it over the last 2.5 years, and so happened almost daily in some cases, which is it just wrecks you every time, right? When you don't think, it's like, I'm not going to make it, and oh, wait a second, we're there. Of course, why did I doubt, right? And so a lot of the what God's calling in my life is about the a lot of people, they like to do mission work, but a majority of it happens overseas.
Yeah.
And for me, I felt called to, we have brothers and sisters in our own backyard. Right. And what are people doing, for the lost right here in our communities? Right. And so it's like, here is a place that I could use the gifts and talents the Lord has given me to make a difference. Right. And so that's what I've been walking into for, the last 2.5 years is, what does that look like? Right. And I'm so fortunate, and the Lord, the way that He has given me these talents is, He's given me an opportunity to kind of to look at complex problems and figure out really creative solutions.
I love that.
Right, and through numbers. So a lot of the way that I kind of solve problems, or I like to solve problems, is through math, because math can really give you a pretty good understanding of things, right? Mathematically, how does this work, right? And some people say it's the language of the Lord is math, right? It's mathematically. So so really, what I've been working on is how do we get people out of homelessness or out of poverty into a financial stability.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think Jimmy Carter, he really got it right. When he created Habitat for Humanity, I think he really understood the value of ownership. Right. So what is a cure for poverty? Well, it's ownership. Right. And so what does that mean? What does that look like? You got to think about California, where we are today. The median price home is about $800,000 or more to purchase, and the median income can only really afford about a $300,000 to $400,000 home. So you have about a $400,000 to $500,000 gap, right? So people's access to ownership is being challenged,
right?
And so. So we as a community, as a society, we can do better than that, and so I've thought about creatively. Well, how do we fill that gap? Right. And so maybe we got to think about housing a little differently. Maybe it's fractionalized ownership. Maybe it's co-living. Maybe with our Section 8 vouchers, we need to do income. We need to do participation so that the individuals get some kind of benefit, long-term benefit. from being in the voucher program, instead of it being a pass-through, right? It's more of a hand-up, right? Instead of a handout, we want to, hey, look, if you're able to meet these, these basic requirements of some kind of case management work, you're clean, you're sober for so long, you've kept a job for so long, whatever those things are, then maybe there should be a benefit. Mm-hmm. And I think it's Warren Buffett said, if you show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome, right? And so it's like, well, we want good outcomes, right? So let's give some incentive, right? Let's and we can totally do it. Which is amazing. Like when I run the numbers and I run math, and it is feasible and it can work, mm-hmm. right? But it's going to take people who are willing to try something new.
Right. That's such a big deal.
Yeah.
That's what I woke up this morning with, that thought. We need to think differently. Amen. You're somebody who thinks differently, and it's so inspiring. When you meet somebody, say, I love the word solutionary. I don't know who came up with that, but I love the word solutionary, because sometimes I feel like we get kind of numb to some of the big challenges or problems, so there's just no way out. Sure. But we landed on the moon. I think we can. I think we can figure this out. You know what I mean? But thinking differently. Yes. That's really the thing, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's changing your mindset. It's changing perspective, and a lot of it I like to think is God has He's the ultimate source of wisdom, right? So a lot of the problems that we have, if we look to the Lord, there is solution, right?
That's right.
And you ask, right? And you pray into it, and you believe. Right. And so, for me, a lot of the solutions that I've seen in this kind of space is divine in some ways. It's you can remove the scales from your eyes. You can remove the blinders. I mean, we do get numb to things as a society, but for me, being able to think differently and then take math and put math around it to understand it, right? So now I have a way to communicate with other people, and
it works.
That it works. That's
the big thing.
Right. It's not just like this
works.
Yeah, no, it works.
Right.
I could go to a bank with this.
Right.
Right. I could go to a group of investors with this.
Right.
Right. So how do we create emergency housing that is a financial model that is economically viable? Right. And so what does that look like, and how do we do that? And so,
when I was in Dallas, they have the 22 housing projects controlled by the Housing Authority.
Yes.
And I went to them and asked them to turn them all over to me.
Yes.
But they wouldn't do it because they'd all be out of a job. but sometimes I think people miss the forest, because I want to say, if you do this in the housing world, like let's say politicians you're talking to, you're going to save 10 times what you invest in locking them up.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine what they spent.
Oh, yes.
The cost of building I always think about this, the cost of building a basketball court in a community probably saves how much in, we have to think differently about it.
This is so true. Thank you for asking this question, because this is goes right to the heart of it. You just zoned in right to the heart, right? And so if you think about it, the cost for an unhoused individual, as far as the impact on services, runs approximately about $100,000 a year. So for an unhoused person living, you wouldn't think this, but people. We have situations. It's math, right? It's math. It's math. It's all the services that it takes to support somebody unhoused, right? Versus, we run shelters where we can house somebody, provide all the wraparound services for about $40,000 to $50,000 a year, right? So, and the beauty around that is, if you could take that cost offset and actually use that to reinvest back into housing, then all of a sudden, right now we have about 300,000 unhoused individuals in California. We're 50% of the United States population of unhoused are here in California. And if we just thought differently and had a different approach, the money that we could save from people not being housed to housing them would actually pay for the development of the housing, the 300,000 housing units that we need within 3 years. That's the different way of thinking. That is what the math says. If you run the numbers, that's what it says. Which is, we have all these billions of dollars that are coming down for all these programs, and
does anybody ever ask if they're working? That's one of my concerns. Does anybody ever go, okay, we're spending the money, is it working?
I mean,
I'm not trying to shoot at Sacramento, but maybe I am, kind of. Are you running for president?
No. No, in fact, I tried the politics thing when I was younger. In college, I ran I was the president of the whatever. I'm not politics. Like that is, I learned really quickly that politics is not where I like to be. In fact, I'm not going to say which county, but so now I am trying to work with counties and cities to help give better solutions and give best practices, and what do those look like, and how do we spend money and be good stewards of our money, right? Because it is our money.
Right.
But so, for example, I went to a certain county. I looked at all the land that the county had, and I said, here's all these sites, and then I said, here's all these different types of housing products that you could, or even shelter products that you could use, kind of like, and here's what they cost per unit, per bed, and they got all excited. They're like, no one's ever done this for us. This is incredible. Finally, we have some visibility around what it costs to house people in our county and where they could go. And then all of this, so there's all this excitement. The next meeting was we sat down with all the service providers in the county, and then it became very clear at that point that with government, we weren't going to be able to solve the problem. Because everyone got really concerned about their funding and their part of the pie, not necessarily solving the problem. And so for me, that was my first, and that was kind of my first aha moment.
Several of those.
Yeah, it was aha. So this isn't going to happen in the public forum. Right. If we're gonna solve this, it's got to be private.
Ground up.
Yeah, it's got to be ground up. It's got to be a private solution that is economically viable.
We need more of that. I mean, that's what solutionaries,
Yes.
I don't, again, I really respect elected leaders. I pray for them.
Amen. Me too.
I have concerns though, because it's the same what you're just saying. It's math, and so I'm going, okay, and I saw this thing the other day. It's like, imagine taking 40% of everybody in the United States' income, and still being $33 trillion in debt. You might be bad at spending. Math.
Yeah.
So without, and I'm talking Republicans, Democrats, all of them. Do at some point, is this going to, are we already over the edge? How do we?
I mean, I like to be optimistic, but I can tell you that the current
trajectory.
The current trajectory is not a sustainable one.
Right.
Which has its own set of challenges. We do live in a debt-based monetary system that is inflationary. It's being expanded, and so a lot of people are like, we've never seen homeless like this before. Why is the population growing to the way it is? And then there's this other perspective of, well, people are choosing to be homeless. It's because they want to be on drugs and they choose a lifestyle because there's all this opportunity. But the reality is that over 60% of Americans, not just Californians, probably higher in California, live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean for us as a society? Well, it means in a monetary inflationary system that more and more pressure is put on these individuals living from paycheck to paycheck, and it's one car accident, right? It's one loss of job. Right. It's one medical issue. Right. It's a divorce. It's it's one life. People are one life event away nowadays to living in their car.
Right.
And this is a reality that I don't think that people are thinking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's like what do they say when is there a recession? It's
when your neighbor.
Yes.
Yeah, when your neighbor's hurting.
Right.
When it comes home,
Right.
it's a depression.
Right.
My concern
That's
is
right.
the printing the money.
Yes.
We're printing money like it's
Yes.
going out of style.
Yes.
And I don't know if anybody's paying attention to what happened in Argentina, but you look at 40 million, I think is their population.
Yeah.
And 7 million of them work.
Yeah.
And they interview me. They say I make more money by staying home.
Yeah.
We have a problem. And inflation's 100%. Like, I think solutionaries need to be thinking differently privately, because I don't know if we're going to be able to turn the Titanic around on the government end.
So I totally agree on all of this. You're 1,000% right. And by the way, I would never be a politician, because it's probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. So I want to say that, like, I don't want it to sound like politicians are bad people.
Right.
They're actually amazing, incredible people that
Right.
that have hearts to serve.
Right.
Right.
The system, though, is tough.
There's a lot of people that go into politics that have the right heart.
Yeah.
But once they get in, it's the system. I call it upside down.
Right.
Right. We're upside down, and we got a right side up. So I call it the right side up theory.
Right.
Right. So we got a right side up a lot of things. It's like housing is one of them. Right.
Yeah.
We have housing. We've got medicine. We've got food. We've got financial system. We could go down all the list, and all of it needs. We need to overhaul.
Yeah.
But for me, what God's put on my heart is, I'm serving. I'm trying to end generational poverty and homelessness.
Right.
And someday all these other things will have to get addressed as well.
Yeah.
But
I love it, and I love you've got friends you're doing this with.
Yes.
Like-minded people, faith-oriented people, and a couple of people like-minded can change the world. Sometimes I think we underestimate. I think there's that quote. We overestimate what we can do in a year, but we significantly underestimate what we can do in 5 or 10. I think that's true. And when you get a group of like-minded people together, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's exponential.
Yes.
12 guys following Jesus changed the world,
Amen.
all of human history. And so I love that about you, and I just would encourage you to keep your spirits up, because I think sometimes also the enemy doesn't like, and comes after families, comes after people, comes after guys, because that's a threat.
Yep.
So I think you probably have, that, but you probably have a little target on your back if you.
Oh yeah. So again, this is what I was telling you when the Lord's closing doors, right? And then having that call to faith on a regular basis, it is because I have a target on my back, and I know it.
Yeah.
But for me, having the confidence in my relationship with the Lord, that I know who wins.
Yeah, that's right.
So bring it all, because I know who wins.
That's right.
Right. I'm going to keep pushing forward the purpose that God's put on my life, right, to help end homelessness and poverty.
I love it.
And there are a lot of changes that need to happen in order for that. But we could start one project at a time.
Yep. One life at a time.
One life at a time.
What's it worth? What's a life worth?
Yes.
So that's the beauty of this.
Yes.
He's in charge of the results, but one life changed is worth all the tea in China.
And that's for my life. I was adopted. So I feel like God
You were twice adopted.
Yeah, man. It's like it's incredible. So I've always felt like God had a calling or a purpose in my life because of me being adopted, and so I always knew that I'm doing something big.
Yeah.
Right. Like even though I went through all the stuff as a kid or as a I've gone through a lot. Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, people are like, well, how did you stay so happy? Like, you went through all of these things, but and it's because I always knew that there was this bigger purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got you.
And so the more I lean in to my purpose and to my calling and in my relationship, just more and more doors open. Like, I'm here today.
Yeah.
Right. As an example, I never would have guessed 2 years or 3 years from now I'd be sitting with you on your program with all these incredible list of people that have changed the world.
Yeah.
That are changing the world.
Yeah.
So again,
I love it. It's not over till we win.
Yes.
We didn't even get to talk about his wife, Katrina. Hi, Katrina. Sorry. I like your husband. I'm sure you do too. But this is awesome. We ran out of time. But thank you. God is good.
Yes.
solutionaries.
I love it.
love everything about this. Thank you,
Amen.
man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.